Okay, it's a big week for climate stories, and people seem to be paying attention. I wonder why. Is it because the deadly climate chaos induced heat wave in the Pacific Northwest is so hot that no one is even talking about the oppressive and completely abnormal heat wave that is happening in the Northeast over the last few days? I guess you have to be at least 50 degrees above average to make the news cycle these days. The East was only 25 degrees above the average normal. The heat wave might finally be making people, take the climate emergency for an actual emergency. The Supreme Court this week is showing just how corporate friendly it is going to be. On Monday, it handed down 2 wins for the fossil fuel industry. First, it ruled 7-2 that the controversial Atlantic Coast Pipeline can pass underneath the Appalachian Trail. Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan were the only 2 who dissented because the Appalachian Trail is land in the national park system, and under federal law, a pipeline plainly cannot cross land in the national park system. The Southern Environmental Law Center, who is working diligently to stop the unnecessary, and I might add murderous pipelines, my words, not theirs, but obvious. They said that all is not lost, that this permit is only one that's been granted, and there are 8 more necessary to complete the project, and those are very much up in question. So there's still time for protest. That was on Monday, and then on Tuesday, SCOTUS sided with PennEast Pipeline Company, and you know that can't be good. PennEast wants to force a pipeline through New Jersey, even though New Jersey doesn't want it. In addition to being very rapey, it shows us exactly how close the U.S. is becoming to a pure corporatocracy. PennEast got a federal permit, which the company argued conferred power of eminent domain and allows it to overrule the state's opposition to the pipeline's construction. And the court agreed. Apparently, that states' rights argument only comes into play when you're trying to keep Black people from voting. We're going to get into that later. But this decision was 5-4, the PennEast decision was, and it was written by, John Roberts. And it removes an obstacle in the construction of that $1 billion, 116-mile pipeline that's going to carry fracked gas if it gets through the rest of the process. And it will endanger populations from Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, across the Delaware River and into Mercer County, New Jersey, crossing some lands owned by the state. Here's a video by the NRDC, who has been fighting this and other pipelines across the country, about why this pipeline is bad. My guess is you already know, but this is pretty good. SCOTUS took a nap on hump day, but today they were ready to hand down some more horror. The court dealt yet another blow to our freedom to vote in the Brodovich versus DNC case by upholding Arizona's discriminatory voting laws and weakening Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which will make future challenges to any or all of the vicious anti-voter laws we see popping up everywhere even more difficult. They're trying to checkmate us on all fronts, it seems. Last Friday was the 8-year anniversary of the Shelby versus Holder decision, where, if you remember, the Supreme Court effectively gutted the Voting Rights Act by ending the federal law or a federal review requirement for any attempts to create barriers that discriminate against voters. So they have been at this undermining the voting system for a long time. We may very well be in the final quarter, and we kind of are on all fronts. Just wait till I read you the IPCC report. The Supreme Court just had an opportunity to protect America's freedom to vote, but instead it allowed Arizona lawmakers to put up barriers to silence voters' voices based on what they look like or where they live, and while at the same time making it more difficult to challenge discriminatory voting laws in the future. We can fight this. I urge you to take some action. We have to come together to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the For the People Act to enact national standards to prevent future attacks on our freedoms so that we can all have our voices heard. Hey, you have to call your representatives and thank them if they already support these two pieces of legislation, and shame them all to hell, i.e. pressure them if they don't. It's more important than ever now that we pass the national standards to protect our freedom to vote. Voting is still one thing that we still kind of can do, or at least some people, to fight climate change. And we need to do that. Toot de sweet. A leaked 4,000-page report. Did you hear about this? From the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Well, it basically is showing how significantly climate change will reshape life on Earth in the coming decades, even if greenhouse gas emissions are curbed. It's considered the most comprehensive report on climate, and it shows how climate change is upending the world. I feel like a report comes out regularly saying it's worse than we thought, but guess what? It's worse than we thought. It's not great news, as you can see by looking out your window at what is happening. The report outlines some of the devastating impacts of climate change, like species extinction, more widespread disease, unlivable heat, rising sea levels, and ecosystem collapse that are, of course, accelerating and bound to become painfully obvious before a child born today turns 30, according to the report. They're going to be able to see all of those different things that I just listed. That's not that long from now. In other words, the impacts are going to be much closer than people realize. The climate scientists are concerned that global heating will trigger tipping points in the Earth's natural systems, which will lead to widespread and likely irreversible disaster unless urgent action is taken. So I do stand with Sunrise. I stand with anyone taking any kind of action that might lead to more action being taken as urgently as possible. While the IPCC is preparing the report to be published in stages this year, most of it's not going to be published in time, for consideration by those policymakers who are going to be at the COP26, because it's not coming out until February 2022. How convenient. The report warns that previous major climate shocks dramatically altered the environment and wiped out most species, saying life on Earth can recover from drastic climate shifts by evolving into new species and creating new ecosystems, but humans cannot. And that is why I believe all those folks who are rich are trying to get up into space and live on Mars or something. I just wish they had gone way before they had ruined it down here, or at least contributed to the ruining. You're watching Act Now. I'm Julianna Forlano. I hope you enjoyed this program. You're going to be able to find us wherever you're watching us now on the regular. I believe our schedule from now on is going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, so put it into your calendar and follow act.tv across platforms. I thank you so much for watching. I thank you so much for participating in our democracy, and I will see you next time.